Be careful what you wish for. Let's get into it. If you haven't already, make sure you do go across to the YouTube channel called No Tippy Tappy Football, because um, Sam Allardyce, former West Ham manager, was joined by Stuart Pearce, and they were talking all things football, life after West Ham, life during West Ham, his footballing career, etc., etc. And during that interview, obviously, they asked Stuart Pearce questions in relation to why did you leave West Ham, and Stuart Pearce, seemed to answer it as honestly as he could. And he did say it was down to, personal issues. It wasn't down to the club. And he's just extremely, you know, thankful of his time at the club, and he still goes into the club, puts his training gear on, and helps out certain things here, there, and everywhere. But he was talking about his travel time being 5:30 in the morning, arriving home at 7:30 at night. His work-life balance just really wasn't hitting the note. However, as you can expect, the question then turned on to David Moyes, and it was interesting because they spoke about Mark Warburton when he was on the Tippy Tappy, no Tippy Tappy Football, and how Mark Warburton at the time had said that he left West Ham because what he valued more than that was his friendship with David Moyes, and he didn't agree with the style that David Moyes was doing. And then Sam Allardyce kind of piped in during the interview with Stuart Pearce saying, "Do you know what? I never really got that signing by West Ham because you signed a number one and brought him in as a number two. And I think in the number two's head, Mark Warburton said that he always wanted to be the number one, so he'd always have struggled with that. And so they kind of dissected onto that a little bit, and then they went on to the point about West Ham as a whole, and where they are this season. And the questions they asked was, we're seventh or eighth. Why are people still questioning the situation? And Stuart Pearce answered it by saying the following, saying how West Ham fans have a bit of a hang up about the style of play. If you go back to the 1970s and you see West Ham playing a specific style of play, and a lot of fans now believe that we should be playing that West Ham way, right? And I think Stuart Pearce mentions that he's a little bit naive because he said, "I don't know if the West Ham way existed when it absolutely did exist." I don't need to be born in that era to know that West Ham way did exist. So don't. That's the part that kind of pisses me off, is the fact that, have you done your due diligence? You've played for the club quite a few times. I just think that at that point you need to get your facts factually correct on that point. We have had a West Ham way in the past. But Stuart Pearce then goes on and talks about winning trophies over our career, and he's right in saying the amount of like we've won trophies, and the attributes and the contribution that David Moyes has made at the club. We've won the trophies in the past, and what David Moyes has now done by winning this trophy now, and what he's done to West Ham. But he then goes on and he says the following comment: "Be careful what you wish for." People seem to get triggered by that comment. Be careful what you wish for. I suppose there's elements of, I get the comment to a certain extent on both angles, on both sides. Be careful what you wish for, because no matter what West Ham do in terms of management coming in, there's always a risk factor involved. Keeping David Moyes, there's a risk factor involved. I suppose there's a less risk factor involved because you know what you're going to get. So what you're going to get is the consolidator, the negative style sometimes of football, the frustrating side of football. That is, so be it, what we'll get when you get a David Moyes. But if you do jump into the bandwagon of bringing in a new manager and doing all that sort of stuff, well, do you know what? Essentially, the comment that frustrates people is technically true. Be careful what you wish for, but that doesn't mean it will go wrong. But equally, doesn't mean it will go right. There's so many things to take in it. But I think we need to be careful about what we take from ex pros. But what I find interesting is he makes the point of saying he's poured his heart and soul into the club, and he makes a valid point that he has brought West Ham on, which I don't think we can deny. But he doesn't go on about any further. It's just about for me, the question is, has he hit his ceiling? And I think it looks like he possibly has. And what can he do to bring West Ham to that next stage? Because there's consolidation, which we've been doing now for 3 seasons. European football for 3 seasons, consolidation. What I don't want to do is go so many steps back. And that's the concern I think you and me as fans have got. Sam Allardyce actually goes on and says that he believes this whole West Ham situation, and while we can move forward and is just one striker away. But that's a bit of naivety from Sam Allardyce, because that makes me know that he hasn't really looked at West Ham's squad, because you don't have to be a rocket science to look at West Ham's squad and realize that there's aging departments, aging areas, players out of contracts, players that haven't performed at a high level. Sam Allardyce makes a valid point. You don't be buying loads of £40 million players, especially when you need to buy a special player. You maybe need to up the ante a little bit, but it's not always about the big money signings. But so I think the naivety there in that interview about Sam Allardyce saying, you know, signing a £70 million striker is going to change West Ham as a whole. Listen, getting someone and guaranteeing someone to sign you 18, 19, 20 goals a season will do any team the world of good. Any team in the world of good. Just look at what Cole Palmer is achieving at Chelsea, albeit Chelsea are currently below West Ham with games in hand. But the way that their season started to the way that currently it's going, and Cole Palmer's form, it's really telling. It's really telling. But like I said in the show earlier on, under David Moyes, which is what Steve Stuart Pearce has said, we've had trophies, or a trophy, you should say. We've had a final, we've had a semi-finals. Sometimes in the case, it's be careful what you wish for. But for me, that's what's telling is when Sam Allardyce speaks out and says, "What's the contract situation with David Moyes?" Stuart Pearce then says, "Listen, I don't think he signed anything," and Sam Allardyce starts to kind of make it the Sam Allardyce show by saying, "This is what they did with me." But equally, though, we have to remember we are dealing with the owners that West Ham have got. David Sullivan, we know what he's like. And as Russ has said many a times, we should have really, and many fans have said this all along, we should have dealt with this long time ago back in the summer. You either commit or you don't. You don't let your manager run down his contract. Who knows what's going to happen come the summer? Um, I know it's a massive task, but if he somehow turns over Leverkusen and we can win the Europa League, then I will personally hand him a new contract. Or sorry, I can't hand him the contract, but I'll stand there and clap as he's signing that contract if he wins the Europa League with West Ham. That's a massive ask, and we know that ourselves. It's an interesting watch. I'll put the link in the description, but make sure you do go across to the 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 it's called the No Tippy Tappy Football YouTube channel, where, like I said, Sam Allardyce does do an interview with Stuart Pearce. But be careful what you wish for. What do you think? Is there an element of truth in that? Is there not? Should we be careful what we wish for? Final question is, do you want David Moyes to be at West Ham come the summer? Take it easy.